Ladies and gentlemen of the night, welcome once more to the shadow behind you, where the forgotten whispers of the past claw their way back into the light, or rather, into the encroaching darkness that swallows us all. I am your host, the one who lingers in the dim corners of history, unearthing tales that time itself has tried to bury beneath layers of soil and silence. Tonight, we venture into the rugged heart of the Missouri Ozarks, that labyrinth of mist-shrouded hills and hollows where the earth seems to breathe with secrets long unspoken. The year is 1865, a time when the echoes of cannon fire from the Civil War still reverberate through the valleys, and the blood-soaked ground hungers for more than just rain. Imagine, if you will, the Ozarks as they were then, a wild tapestry of towering oaks and hickories, their branches twisting like skeletal fingers against a bruised sky. The air hangs heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, mingled with the acrid tang of gunpowder from battles not yet forgotten. Rivers carve through the limestone like veins, carrying away the sins of men, but some stains refuse to wash clean. In these hills, where isolation breeds suspicion and folklore festers like an open wound, families cling to their kin, their cabins huddled against the encroaching wilderness. But what happens when one such family vanishes without a trace, leaving behind only echoes of screams and the chill of an unnatural presence? Our story centers on Mary Lou Ashcroft, a name that, even now, sends shivers through the spines of those who dare utter it in the dead of night. She was no ordinary girl. No, Mary Lou was woven from the very fabric of the Ozarks mysteries, born into a bloodline whispered to be cursed. She moved through the world with an ethereal grace, her eyes holding the depth of forgotten caves, her voice a melody that could soothe beasts or summon storms. But in 1865, as the war's ragged end brought not peace but a festering resentment, something unspeakable befell her. What happened to Mary Lou Ashcroft? The hills know, oh yes, they know. They whisper it in the rustle of leaves, in the howl of winds that carry the faint scent of lilacs and brimstone. And tonight, dear listener, we shall listen together. Picture this. It's a moonless evening in late autumn, the kind where fog rises from the creeks like the breath of buried souls. You're walking a narrow dirt path through the woods, the crunch of gravel underfoot the only sound breaking the oppressive quiet. Suddenly, a twig snaps behind you. Not the step of a deer, no, something deliberate, something watching. You turn. But there's nothing there, or is there? A shadow flits at the edge of your vision, a form that shouldn't be, pale and fleeting. That's the essence of our tale, the shadow that pursues, the one you feel but never quite see. Mary Lou's story is one of vanishing, of a family erased from the earth as if by some malevolent hand. But vanishings in the Ozarks are never clean. They leave residues, hauntings that seep into the soil and poison the wells of memory. As we delve deeper, you'll feel the chill creep into your bones, the way the air thickens with unspoken dread. The Ashcrofts were not newcomers, their roots twisted deep into the Ozark earth, intertwined with legends of witches and pacts made under blood moons. Mary Lou, the youngest daughter, was said to possess the sight, that uncanny ability to peer beyond the veil, to converse with spirits that lingered from the native trails long trodden underfoot. But in a time when war had torn brother from brother, such gifts were seen not as blessings, but as curses. Union sympathizers and Confederate bushwhackers alike eyed the Ashcrofts with suspicion, whispering of hexes cast on failing crops and mysteriously ailing livestock. The hook, my friends, lies in the mystery of that fateful night in November 1865. The war had ended, but its ghosts marched on. Returning soldiers, hollow-eyed and haunted, spoke of a gathering storm over the Ashcroft Hollow. Mary Lou, driven by desperation to protect her kin from vengeful raiders, turned to the old ways, the forbidden rituals passed down through generations. What she unleashed that night, well, that's the shadow that still haunts the hills. Families disappeared before, you see, swallowed by the wilderness or driven out by feuds, but the Ashcrofts, they left no bodies, no graves, Only an empty cabin where the fire still smoldered, and a single lilac bloom wilting on the threshold, out of season and reeking of decay. As we embark on this journey, let the atmosphere envelop you. Feel the damp chill of the fog on your skin. Hear the distant call of an owl that sounds too human, too mournful. This is not just a story, it's an invocation, a summoning of the past's restless spirits. Mary Lou Ashcroft's fate is a tapestry of loss and lingering malice, a reminder that in the Ozarks, the land remembers every drop of blood spilled upon it. And as the hills whisper her name, you might find yourself glancing over your shoulder, wondering if her shadow has found you too. But hush now, the tale unfolds. Let us step into the narrative, where the line between history and horror blurs like mist at dawn. Prepare yourselves, for what happened to Mary Lou Ashcroft is not merely a forgotten chapter. It's a curse that echoes still, waiting to claim its next victim in the endless night. Now, let us descend into the heart of the story, where the threads of fate begin to weave their dark pattern. It was the spring of 1865 when the first omens appeared, though few recognized them as such. The Civil War, that great devourer of men, had finally gasped its last breath with Lee's surrender at Appomattox in April. Yet in the Missouri Ozarks, peace was a fragile illusion, shattered by the crack of rifles from hidden snipers and the smoldering ruins of barns set ablaze in retribution. The hills, scarred by guerrilla warfare, bushwhackers loyal to the Confederacy clashing with Union militias, held their grudges like old oaks hold on to their roots. Into this cauldron of unrest lived the Ashcroft family, secluded in a narrow hollow near what is now the town of Theodosia, though back then it was little more than a cluster of log cabins and whispering springs. The patriarch, Elias Ashcroft, was a stern man of Scots, Irish descent, his face etched with lines like the cracks in the cast rock beneath their feet. He'd fought briefly for the Union, a decision that branded him a traitor in the eyes of many neighbors who bled grey. His wife, Abigail, was a quiet soul, her hands calloused from tending herb gardens that bloomed with remedies both mundane and mystical. Foxglove for the heart, mandrake for pains that went deeper than flesh. But it was their daughter, Mary Lou, who truly embodied the enigma of the Ashcrofts. At 19, she was a vision of wild beauty, hair like raven feathers cascading down her back, eyes the color of storm clouds reflecting hidden lightning. She moved through the woods with a grace that belied her mortal form, gathering mushrooms and roots under the canopy where sunlight dappled the forest floor like scattered coins. Villagers in the nearby settlement of Gainesville spoke of her in hushed tones. "That girl's got the old blood," they'd say, crossing themselves. Her granny was a yarb doctor, knew spells to call the rain or curdle milk in a cow's udder. Mary Lou's days were spent in quiet communion with the land. She'd wander the ridges, her bare feet sinking into the loamy soil, listening to the murmurs of the wind through the sassafras trees. The Ozarks were alive to her, a pulsing entity of caves and creeks, where ancient spirits slumbered in the depths of bull shoals or the hidden grottos of the White River. She collected pawpaw fruits, not just for their custard, like flesh, but for their reputed power against witches, though irony would later twist that lore upon itself. As summer waned into autumn, the tensions escalated. Returning Confederate soldiers, ragged and bitter, roamed the hills like specters. They'd lost homes, brothers, ideals. Whispers spread of raids on Union sympathizers, of nooses swinging from sturdy oaks. The Ashcrofts, with their isolated hollow, became a target. Elias had sheltered runaway slaves during the war, guiding them north through secret trails, a fact that leaked like poison into the community's well. One evening, as the sun dipped below the ridgeline, casting long shadows that seemed to grasp at the cabin's walls, a group of men, former bushwhackers led by a scarred veteran named Harlan Crow, rode up the path. Their horses' hooves thudded like distant thunder, stirring dust that hung in the air like a shroud. Harlan, his eye patched from a saber wound at Wilson's Creek, dismounted with a grunt. "Elias Ashcroft," he bellowed, his voice gravelly from too many campfires and screams. "We know what you done, harboring them darkies, Cursin our kin with your witch wife's potions." Abigail clutched her apron, her face pale as moonlight, while Elias stood firm on the porch, shotgun cradled in his arms. Mary Lou watched from the edge of the woods, her heart pounding like a trapped bird. She could feel the malice radiating from the men, a black aura that tainted the crisp air scented with pine and impending rain. "Ain't no curses here," Elias replied, his tone steady but edged with fear. "War's over, Harlan. Go home to your own." But Harlan spat, his spittle landing near Elias's boot. "War ain't over till we say, and your girl's been seen dancing under the moon, callin' devils. We'll be back, Ashcroft, and next time it won't be words." As the riders vanished into the twilight, Mary Lou emerged, her dress snagged with burrs, eyes wide with a mixture of terror and resolve. "They're comin' for us," she whispered, her voice a silken thread in the gathering dark. Elias nodded grimly, pulling her close. "The hills protect their own child, but we must be vigilant." That night, around the flickering hearth, the family shared stories of their lineage, tales of ancestors who fled the old country, bringing with them charms against the evil eye, rituals to bind spirits to the earth. Mary Lou, however, harbored secrets of her own. In the hidden recesses of her mind, she recalled her grandmother's teachings, how to weave spells from spider silk and how to summon guardians from the limestone depths. As the days shortened, omens multiplied. Crows gathered in unnatural numbers on the cabin's roof, their calls a cacophony of warnings. Milk sawed overnight, and strange lights flickered in the woods. Willow, the wisp some called them, luring the unwary to doom. One crisp October morning, Mary Lou ventured deeper into the hills than ever before. The air was thick with the aroma of falling leaves, crunching underfoot like brittle bones. She sought a sacred spot her grandmother had described, a circle of stones atop a bald knob, where the veil between worlds thinned. There, amid the whispering grasses, she found it, an ancient ring, moss-covered and humming with latent power. Kneeling, she traced runes in the dirt, murmuring incantations in a tongue forgotten by most. Spirits of the deep earth, guardians of the hollow, shield us from the storm to come. But as she spoke, a chill wind arose, carrying the faint echo of laughter. Not human, but something older, hungrier. The ground trembled faintly, and for a moment, Mary Lou glimpsed shadows coalescing at the circle's edge, forms twisted and ethereal, eyes glowing like embers in a dying fire. She fled back to the cabin, heart racing, unaware that she had stirred something ancient, a force tied to the land's bloody history. Tensions peaked as November's frost painted the landscape in silvery death. Harlan's men struck at neighboring farms, leaving warnings carved into doors. Traitors beware. The Ashcrofts barricaded their home, Elias keeping watch with loaded rifle, Abigail brewing protective teas from elderberry and rue. Mary Lou, sleepless and haunted by visions, confided in her mother. "I felt it, Ma. The shadow in the hills. It's awake now, and it's comin'." Little did they know, the true horror was not from the raiders, but from within. The curse Mary Lou had unwittingly invoked. A pact that demanded payment in blood and souls. As the November winds howled like banshees through the hollows, the Ashcroft family's fate hurtled toward its chilling climax. The air grew colder, not just from winter's approach, but from an unnatural frost that rhymed the windows with patterns resembling grasping hands. Mary Lou's dreams turned nightmarish. Visions of her family engulfed in shadows, their screams swallowed by the earth itself. She'd wake drenched in sweat, the scent of lilacs, her favorite flower, clinging to her skin like a premonition of decay. Elias, ever the pragmatic father, dismissed her fears as war-born hysteria. "It's the bushwhackers we gotta worry about, not ghosts," he'd gruff, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. He reinforced the cabin, nailing shutters and stockpiling ammunition scavenged from abandoned battlefields. Abigail, however, sensed the deeper malaise. "The old blood runs strong in you, Mary Lou," she murmured one evening by the fire, its flames casting dancing shadows on the rough-hewn walls. "But meddlin' with the spirits, it comes at a cost." The raiders returned under a gibbous moon, their torches flickering like malevolent stars. Harlan Crow led them, a posse of 6, faces smeared with soot to blend with the night. They encircled the cabin, whoops echoing through the trees, a cacophony designed to instill terror.
"Come out, Ashcroft! Time to pay for your sins!"
Harlan shouted, his voice slicing the darkness. Inside, chaos erupted. Elias fired through a loophole, the shotgun's boom reverberating like thunder. A raider fell, clutching his shoulder, blood blooming dark on his shirt. The others retaliated, bullets splintering wood, the acrid smell of powder filling the air. Abigail huddled with Mary Lou in the root cellar, its earthen walls damp and claustrophobic, redolent of potatoes and mildew. "Stay down, child," Abigail whispered, but Mary Lou's mind raced to the stone circle, to the power she'd glimpsed. As the siege intensified, torches hurled at the roof, flames licking greedily at the thatch. Mary Lou slipped out a hidden back door, her form a ghost in the moonlight. She ran through the woods, branches whipping her face like accusatory fingers, the ground uneven and treacherous. Behind her, the sounds of battle faded, replaced by the pounding of her heart and the rustle of unseen pursuers. Or were they pursuers? The shadows seemed alive, coiling around trees, whispering her name in sibilant tones. Reaching the stone circle, Mary Lou collapsed to her knees, the cold earth seeping through her skirts. The moon bathed the site in silvery light, illuminating the runes she'd etched before. "Spirits, hear me!" she cried, her voice raw with desperation. "Take my offering, protect my kin." She drew a small knife, pricking her palm, blood welling like dark rubies. Droplets fell to the ground, absorbed instantly as if the soil thirsted for them. What happened next defies rational explanation, entering the realm of the Ozarks' deepest folklore. The wind surged, howling through the stones, carrying the scent of brimstone and blooming lilacs. The ground shuddered, cracks forming like veins in marble, from which emanated a low, guttural moan, as if the earth itself groaned in agony or ecstasy. Shadows detached from the trees, coalescing into forms, twisted figures with elongated limbs, eyes like glowing coals, mouths stretched in silent screams. Mary Lou stood transfixed, horror mingling with awe. These were no benevolent guardians. They were the cursed ones, entities bound to the land since time immemorial, perhaps remnants of native spirits displaced by settlers, or manifestations of the war's collective rage. They swarmed toward her, their touch like icy tendrils, seeping into her skin, filling her with visions of past atrocities, battles at Pea Ridge and Wilson's Creek, slaves fleeing through these very hills, witches burned in secret by fearful mobs. Back at the cabin, the raiders breached the door. Elias fought valiantly, felling another with a hatchet blow, but numbers overwhelmed him. Harlan loomed over Abigail, pistol raised. "Where's the girl?" he snarled. But before he could fire, an unnatural gale extinguished the torches, plunging the scene into darkness. Screams pierced the night. Not just human, but something primal, echoing from the hills. Mary Lou, now a vessel for the entities, felt her body convulse. Power surged through her, a torrent of dark energy. She directed it toward the cabin, a wave of shadow that swept down the hollow like a living fog. The raiders, mid-assault, froze as tendrils enveloped them. Their cries turned to gurgles, bodies contorting unnaturally, bones cracking like dry twigs. Harlan's eye widened in terror as invisible forces lifted him, slamming him against a tree with a sickening thud. But the power was indiscriminate, a curse unbound. It turned on the Ashcrofts too. Elias and Abigail, witnessing the horror, were pulled into the miasma, their forms dissolving like mist in sunlight. Mary Lou, realizing too late, screamed, a sound that rent the night, carrying for miles, chilling the blood of distant farmers. By dawn, the hollow was silent. The cabin stood empty, fire smoldering harmlessly, no bodies to be found. Only a single lilac flower lay on the porch, petals wilting, exuding a scent of death. The raiders' horses wandered riderless, and the men vanished as if the earth had swallowed them whole. In the days that followed, search parties from Gainesville combed the woods, finding only eerie signs, trees twisted into unnatural shapes, ground scarred with runes, and a pervasive chill that lingered despite the sun. Mary Lou Ashcroft and her family were gone, erased from the world, but their presence endured. Whispers of sightings began. A pale figure in white gliding through the mist, eyes glowing with otherworldly light. Livestock sickened near the hollow, crops failed, and those who ventured too close reported dreams of shadows pursuing them relentlessly. The vanishing became legend, a cautionary tale whispered around campfires. But the hauntings persisted, strange lights dancing on the ridges, moans echoing from caves, the inexplicable bloom of lilacs in winter snow. What Mary Lou unleashed that night was no mere spirit. It was the shadow of the Ozarks itself, awakened and insatiable to truly grasp the chilling enigma of Mary Lou Ashcroft's fate. We must peel back the layers of history that cloak the Missouri Ozarks like a shroud of fog. The year 1865 marks not just the end of the Civil War, but the birth of a fractured era, where the scars of conflict festered in the isolated hollows and ridges of this rugged landscape. Missouri, a border state torn between North and South, endured some of the war's most brutal guerrilla warfare. The Ozarks, with their labyrinthine terrain of karst caves, dense forests, and swift rivers, became a haven for bushwhackers. Irregular fighters like those in Quantrill's raiders, who ambushed Union forces and terrorized civilians. In the spring of 1865, as General Robert E. Lee's surrender at Appomattox signaled the war's conclusion, Missouri grappled with emancipation. On January 11, 1865, the state's constitutional convention abolished slavery, freeing thousands but igniting resentments that simmered like embers in dry tinder. The Ozarks, predominantly settled by Scots, Irish immigrants who brought with them a fierce independence, saw little of the plantation economy but much of the personal vendettas. Families like the fictional Ashcrofts, though inspired by real clans, navigated a world where loyalty to Union or Confederacy could mean life or death. Battles such as Pea Ridge in nearby Arkansas, 1862, and Wilson's Creek's 1861 left the region littered with unmarked graves, their restless dead fueling legends of hauntings. Post-war Reconstruction in Missouri was a tumultuous affair. The radical Republicans imposed the ironclad oath, requiring citizens to swear they'd never supported the Confederacy to vote or hold office, disenfranchising many Ozarkers and breeding lawlessness. Bands of ex-Confederates, much like Harlan Crow's posse in our tale, roamed the hills, exacting revenge on perceived traitors. This era of vigilante justice mirrored the broader Reconstruction South, but in the Ozarks' isolation, it took on a more primal folklore-infused hue. Communities turned inward, relying on oral traditions and superstitions to make sense of the chaos. Enter the rich tapestry of Ozark folklore, a blend of European immigrant beliefs, Native American influences from displaced Osage and Cherokee, and the land's own eerie mystique. Vance Randolph's seminal work, Ozark Magic and Folklore, 1947, documents a world teeming with witches, ghosts, and curses, elements that infuse our story with unsettling authenticity. Witches, often women like Mary Lou's grandmother, were yarb doctors, skilled in herbalism using mandrake for love spells, pawpaw to ward off hexes, or elderberry for protection. But these healers walked a knife's edge in times of strife. They were accused of malevolent magic, such as shape-shifting into animals or consorting with devils. Legends abound of witch animals, cats, hares, or crows that served as familiars, echoing European witchcraft trials but adapted to the Ozarks wilderness. Mysterious lights, akin to will-o'-the-wisps, were attributed to ghosts of the slain, luring wanderers to doom in swamps or caves. The Ozarks' geology amplified these tales. Vast underground networks like Marvel Cave house stories of spirits, guarding hidden treasures or punishing intruders. Curses were commonplace, tied to blood feuds or land disputes, believed to cause vanishing illnesses or sudden disappearances. Cultural trauma from the war deepened these beliefs, with thousands dead in skirmishes, from the Battle of Pilot Knob to raids in Jasper County. Survivors reported apparitions of fallen soldiers, their moans echoing through the hills. Emancipation Day celebrations in the Ozarks, as detailed in historical records, mixed joy with eerie rituals, honoring freed slaves while invoking protections against lingering Confederate spirits. Native legends, such as those of the little people or shape-shifters merged with settler folklore, creating hybrids like the Ozark howler, a beastly cryptid said to herald death. In this context, the Ashcroft vanishing resonates with real disappearances documented in the era. Families fled raids, swallowed by the wilderness, their fates mythologized as curses. The witch's coven, tales whispered in places like Conway, speak of secret gatherings under blood moons, rituals to summon earth spirits for vengeance. Tree lore, too, plays a role. Oaks for strength against evil, but twisted ones signaling haunted ground. Blending fact and folklore, the Ozarks emerge as a liminal space where history's horrors manifest supernaturally. The war's end didn't erase the shadows, it deepened them, allowing stories like Mary Lou's to take root. Educational yet eerie, this backdrop reminds us that in the hills, the past doesn't die, it haunts, waiting in the mist for the unwary to stumble upon its truths. Beneath the surface of Mary Lou Ashcroft's harrowing tale lies a labyrinth of symbolic and psychological depths, connecting to universal fears that lurk in the human psyche. This story, rooted in the Ozarks' shadowed history, serves as a mirror to our collective traumas, reflecting how isolation, war, and the unknown conspire to unravel the soul. At its core, the narrative explores the theme of inheritance, not just of land or bloodlines, but of curses that echo through generations, much like the lingering resentments of the Civil War. Symbolically, Mary Lou represents the archetypal witch figure, a woman empowered by knowledge yet doomed by societal suspicion. In Jungian terms, she embodies the anima, the feminine unconscious, stirring forbidden desires and fears in a patriarchal post-war world. Her ritual at the stone circle symbolizes a Faustian bargain, invoking the shadow self, the repressed aspects of humanity that, once unleashed, consumes all. The lilac flower, blooming out of season, evokes themes of unnatural persistence, beauty tainted by death, mirroring how war's end brought not renewal, but a perverse stagnation in the Ozarks. Psychologically, the vanishing speaks to dissociation and collective amnesia. In a region scarred by guerrilla violence, disappearances allowed communities to repress guilt over slavery, raids, or betrayals. Froude might see the haunting as the return of the repressed die, Mary Lou's spirit as the ID's vengeful eruption against the superego's moral constraints. The shadows pursuing victims symbolize paranoia, a universal fear amplified in isolated settings where every rustle could be a bushwhacker or ghost. Thematically, the story connects to cultural trauma. The Civil War's border state divisions in Missouri reflect broader human fractures, brother against brother, echoing Cain and Abel. Mary Lou's curse ties to ecological dread, the land as a vengeful entity poisoned by blood, akin to modern environmental horrors. In folklore, the Ozarks witches symbolize resistance to oppression. Mary Lou's power, though destructive, empowers the marginalized against raiders, critiquing Reconstruction's failures. Universal fears abound. The unknown wilderness as a maw devouring the familiar, vanishing families evoking abandonment anxiety. The narrative probes human nature's duality, our capacity for protection turning to destruction as Mary Lou's ritual saves yet dooms. Intellectually ominous, it questions reality, our hauntings supernatural or projections of guilt. In an era of fake news and historical revisionism, this tale warns against burying truths, lest they rise as shadows. Ultimately, Mary Lou's story haunts because it taps into the primal, the fear that our actions ripple eternally, cursing not just us, but the hills we tread. As our journey through the shadowed hollows draws to a close, the chill of Mary Lou Ashcroft's fate lingers, a spectral hand upon your shoulder. We've traversed the bloodied paths of 1865, witnessed the unleashing of ancient forces, and delved into the Ozarks' whispered lore. Yet, like the mist that never fully lifts from these hills, the mystery endures. What truly happened that November night? Did Mary Lou summon a curse that devoured her kin, or was it the war's madness manifesting as myth? The empty cabin stands as testament, its silence louder than any scream. In the years since, the hauntings persist. Hikers report pale figures in the fog, the scent of lilacs on windless days, shadows that follow with unrelenting patience. The Ashcroft bloodline. forgotten yet unforgotten, serves as a warning, meddle with the deep earth, and it claims you as its own. Dear listener, as you turn off the light, remembers the shadow behind you may not be your own. What secrets do your hills hold? Sleep well, if you can.